You're watching a production of South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
State House program funding provided by the South Dakota Bar Foundation, the educational and charitable arm of South Dakota lawyers and judges.
Hello and welcome to SDPB's coverage of the 2015 inaugural ceremonies. We are coming to you live from your state capitol building in Pierre. I'm Stephanie Rissler alongside Larry Rohr.
Thank you, Stephanie. A little earlier this morning, about 11 o'clock, the representatives and the senators for the legislature were sworn in. Coming up in just a couple of moments, we'll go down to the rotunda floor for the swearing in of the governor and the lieutenant governor and the constitutional offices.
Governor Daugaard will serve as our state's 32nd governor, tackling his second term. First elected in 2010, he was actually taking the oath of office 4 years ago on January 8th, 2011, and we'll see a repeat of that today.
A little background on the governor. He was born and raised on the family dairy farm, which is situated between Del Rapids and Garretson. Both of his parents were born deaf, so sign language was the language of communication in the household. 1975, graduated from the University of South Dakota with a bachelor's degree in government, minors in mathematics and psychology, and went on to a law degree at Northwestern University in Chicago before returning to South Dakota, with good reason.
Of course, marrying his high school sweetheart. The two of them have 3 children together, 1 boy, 2 girls, 3 grandchildren. Before diving into public service, the governor served some work doing trust administration, also some business development, what later became U.S. Bank, then of course taking part in the Children's Home Society, and then in 2009 decided, I'm going to take some time to run for governor.
Well, there's a full lineup of official activities throughout the day. Again, the swearing in of legislators earlier today, and we're going to go now to the rotunda floor for swearing in of the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the constitutional officers.
Well, if that doesn't start this off right, I don't know what would, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Dusty Johnson, and I'm serving as the MC for today's ceremony. We will begin today with a presentation of colors. Please stand for the color guard post and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the most beautiful and the most fully restored state capitol building in the United States. Today, our state peacefully transitions power, as we have always done throughout our 125 years. Today's color guard, Sergeants Eisenhower, Stoudemire, Goodwin, Trowbridge, and Jameson, of course, represent the 3,200 men and women in the South Dakota Army Guard and the 1,000 men and women in the South Dakota Air Guard. Our pre-ceremony music was provided by Private First Class April Magnuson. Our exceptionally talented vocalist was Betty Huss. Ms. Huss and her husband Daniel live on a farm outside of Del Rapids. She grew up next door to and attended Crothers Country School with a young Dennis Daugaard. Betty, he apologizes for pulling your pigtails. Although you could not see her, our accompanist was Sarah Van Huysen. The delightful Ms. Van Huysen also grew up in Del Rapids and is also quite close to the Daugaards, having known them her entire life. Sarah, the governor, does not apologize for pulling your pigtails. Under God, the people rule. And as a result, it is altogether fitting that we would begin today's presentation ceremony with a demonstration of faith. We will hear first from Father Hal Barber. Father Barber was born and raised in Parker. And since his ordination almost 50 years ago, he has served as a priest to 8 parishes. He currently serves as priest to St. Christina's in Parker and St. Mary's Parish in Marion. Father Barber.
I thank you, and I'm very pleased and proud to be invited to give the inaugural prayer. I was fortunate enough to meet and know the Daugaards during my time in Del Rapids. They were regular visitors to our church, and we really appreciate knowing them and being here today. Dear friends and neighbors, let us pray. Heavenly Father, your gifts of love are countless and your goodness infinite. We come before you with grateful hearts for your many acts of benevolence on our behalf. Everything we have, everything we are, everything that is and that will be exists because of you alone. We are deeply grateful to live in these United States, a land of unequaled possibility, and our own great state, South Dakota, where a country boy has given himself to the service of others, as husband, as father, as an attorney, as one directed to the well-being of youth, as lieutenant governor, and as our governor. Now today we gather to inaugurate Dennis Daugaard once again as our governor. The people of our state approved his leadership with an overwhelming vote, calling him forth to a second term. Gracious God, give him the wisdom to lead us with humility, the courage to lead us with integrity, and the compassion to lead us with generosity. Help us all to remember that we are citizens of our state and country, united not just by race or religion or blood, but by our commitment to freedom and justice, equal opportunity, economic growth, and superior educational standards. We ask that you help Dennis to serve, to share, and to seek the common good of all of us. Heavenly Father, we now commit our re-elected Governor Dennis and his wife Linda and their family into your loving care. Walk with them as we look forward to the next 4 years with confidence and pride. We now ask this favor and blessing as we pray in your holy name. Amen.
By my count, this rotunda features at least 5 recognitions, the importance of Lakota culture and history to our state. Lakota prayer is offered today by Sequoia Crosswhite. Mr. Crosswhite is an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. He is descended from 2 chiefs, Chief War Eagle and Chief Swift Cloud. He serves as the Cultural Relations Advisor for Children's Home Society, and it is there he uses music, dance, literature, and other traditional activities to share Lakota culture with the staff and with the children. Mr. Crosswhite.
Must acknowledge this is a true honor, and my position at Children's Home Society is a big deal because Dennis was the one who hired me there for it. You know, as I graduated from college, I graduated with a Lakota language certificate and a degree in Lakota studies. And there's not too many jobs to go out there with those 2 degrees, so I'll say the prayer. Ohotun kashla, wakantanka, tate dopa, unchimaka, unshimalayo, lemie matochikla, ikchewe chasha hemacha. Ohotun kashla, wakantanka, wopila ke, leem petukile. Daku shikshicha, ikhapichu, na ikpea, daku washteshte kuo. Lei tancha, Dennis Daugaard, ewachi, na chante wash ake kuo. Heha, wokichu ze, South Dakota, wash ake, na wochwala, heha washtekte. Makoche ke, el tawichi, na nakila, wajila, heun chapi alo. Wakayajaki lena epicha daku washteshte iwichunk kichunk champikte mitakuye oyasi pilamayakulo. Grandfather, creator to the 4 winds and grandmother earth. My Lakota name is Little Bear. I am just a common man, have pity on me. Grandfather, creator, thank you for this day. May you throw out what is bad and give what is good. Grant Governor Dennis Daugaard with a strong heart and mind, along with the members of the state legislative body. May we have strength and peace to South Dakota. May we become one in the spirit and one in the land. And in the famous words of Chief Sitting Bull, let us put our minds together and see what kind of life we can make for our children. To all my relations, thank you. Amen.
Thank you, Father Barber and Mr. Crosswhite. The dominant 7 consists of 7 trumpets, 1 trombone, a trumpet vocalist, a tuba, a bass, a drum set, and a partridge in a pear tree. All except the partridge are music majors at Northern State University. The group was formed in 2004 and is led by Dr. Grant Manhart. Dominant 7 tours extensively and has performed for audiences as large as 25,000. Today they'll be performing Cornet Carillon by British composer Ronald Binge, with an arrangement by Dr. Manhart. Ladies and gentlemen, Dominant 7. All right, dominant 7. Administering today's oaths of office will be Chief Justice David Gilbertson. The Chief Justice was appointed to the Supreme Court in 1995. He was first elected Chief Justice by his colleagues in 2001, was reelected to another 4-year term as Chief Justice in 2005, a third term in 2009, and a fourth term this last year. Now, we all know that today is a special occasion, but this isn't even the Chief Justice's first swearing in of the week. On Monday, he presided over the investiture of the state's newest member of the Supreme Court, Justice Janine Kern. Justice Kern, welcome to the family. As I begin introducing each elected official, they will make their way to the stage where the chief will administer the oath to them. Today's first oath will be taken by the 32nd governor of the state of South Dakota. He grew up on his family's dairy farm, which his grandparents purchased in 1911 after emigrating from Denmark. His parents were born deaf, making sign language the principal means of communication for his family. He attended a one-room schoolhouse, worked his way through college, washing dishes, waiting tables, and welding on the assembly line. He attended law school at Northwestern, making ends meet as a bus driver, as a law clerk, and most hard to imagine, a security guard. No offense, sir. He moved back into South Dakota in 1981 to marry his high school sweetheart, the truly lovely Linda Schmidt. They have built a loving and successful life with their children and their grandchildren. Throughout the entirety of their lives, they have served others in education, at children's home, in public service. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Dennis Daugaard will now take his oath.
Governor Daugaard, are you ready at this time to take the oath of Governor of the state of South Dakota?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right. Would you read the oath, please?
I, Dennis M. Daugaard, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the state of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of Governor of the state of South Dakota, so help me God.
Congratulations, Governor.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, sir. You're street legal for another 4 years. Very good. Our current lieutenant governor's responsibilities extend well beyond ceremonial duties. He is, to be sure, an active partner in the governance of this state. Twice he has led the state's flood preparations in southeastern South Dakota. He has helped oversee the construction of a new veterans home in Hot Springs. He's served as interim secretary of Veterans Affairs, and he works closely with the National Guard and with tribal relations. He is blessed with his wife Karen, son Colin, daughter-in-law Jill, and a rocking mustache. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Governor Matt Michaels will now take his oath.
Mr. Lieutenant Governor, are you prepared to take the oath of office?
Yes, I am, Chief Justice.
Would you raise your right hand and repeat the oath, please?
Thank you. I, Matthew J.W. Michaels, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution of the laws of the state of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of Lieutenant Governor of the state of South Dakota. So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Lieutenant Governor.
Chantel Krebs was raised on a family farm near Arlington as a fourth-generation South Dakotan. Since graduating from Dakota State University, she has found success and fulfillment in business, in agriculture, and in public service. She just concluded a decade-long tenure in the South Dakota legislature. Like Joyce Hazeltine and Alice Kundert and so many of her predecessors, she will bring intelligence, hard work, and class into her office every day. She and her husband Mitch have recently moved to Fort Pierre. Ladies and gentlemen, Chantel Krebs will now take her oath of office.
Ms. Krebs, are you ready to take the oath of office as Secretary of State at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, would you raise your right hand and read the oath to me, please?
I, Chantel Krebs, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the state of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of Secretary of State of the state of South Dakota. So help me God.
Congratulations, Madam Secretary.
Marty Jackley knows how to fight for South Dakotans. As a Special Assistant AG, as U.S. Attorney, and now as Attorney General, he has long dedicated himself to keeping people safe. He does a good job of it. Marty was raised in Sturgis, graduated from the South Dakota School of Mines, received his law degree from the University of South Dakota, and now lives in Pierre with his wife, Angela, and their children, Michael and Isabella. Ladies and gentlemen, Attorney General Marty Jackley will now take his oath.
Mr. Attorney General, are you ready to take the oath of office at this time?
I am, Mr. Chief Justice.
Very well. Would you take the oath then, please?
I, Marty J. Jackley, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the state of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of Attorney General of the state of South Dakota, so help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Chief.
The position of state auditor requires attention to detail, fiscal responsibility, and the highest in ethical standards. In Steve Barnett, that hand has found its glove. Steve has degrees from the University of South Dakota and the University of Sioux Falls. Prior to his election as auditor, he spent 6 years serving our state as a staffer to Senator John Thune. He and his wife, Nicole, have 3 friendly and adorable children. Emma, Henry, and William get the friendly from both parents and the cute from their mother. Ladies and gentlemen, State Auditor Steve Barnett will now take his oath.
Okay. Mr. Barnett, are you ready to take the oath at this time for State Auditor?
Yes, sir, I am.
There, you may proceed.
I, Stephen J. Barnett, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the state of South Dakota, that I will faithfully perform the duties of State Auditor of the State of South Dakota. So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Auditor.
Thank you, sir.
Rich Sadgast grew up in Spearfish, earning a degree from Black Hills State University, and has spent 25 years serving our country in both the active and reserve armed forces. The people of South Dakota trust Rich Sadgast. He's been elected statewide 4 times, first as state auditor in 2002 and 2006, then as state treasurer in 2010 and 2014. As state treasurer, he has returned $21 million in unclaimed property to its rightful owners. Rich and his fiancée Penny have 3 combined children, Chase, Claire, and Josh. Ladies and gentlemen, State Treasurer Rich Sadgast will now take his oath.
Mr. Sadgast, are you ready at this time to take the oath of State Treasurer?
I am, Chief Justice.
Okay, would you take the oath, please?
I, Richard L. Sadgast, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the State of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of State Treasurer of the State of South Dakota. So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you.
Ryan Bruner grew up on a family farm and feedlot operation in Nisland. He graduated from SDSU, was elected to the Brookings City Council, and then worked for the Brookings Economic Development Corporation. For the last few years, he served as Deputy Commissioner of School and Public Lands. Ryan has dedication, know-how, strong moral fiber, and he'll make a great commissioner. He and his wife Whitney live in Pierre with their son Callum. They're expecting a baby girl in April. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Bruner will now take his oath.
Mr. Bruner, are you ready at this time to take the oath of office for Commissioner of School and Public Lands?
Yes, sir, I am.
Would you raise your right hand and take your oath, please?
I, Ryan Bruner, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the State of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the Commissioner of School and Public Lands of the State of South Dakota. So help me God.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Commissioner.
Few people have dedicated as much time and talent to public service as Gary Hansen. As state senator from 1983 to 88, as Sioux Falls Utilities Commissioner from 88 to 94, as Sioux Falls Mayor from 94 to 2002, and as a Public Utilities Commissioner for the last 12 years. When the citizens have called, Gary has answered. I viewed his thoughtful and deliberate approach to regulation up close, and I'm better for it. Gary and his wife Sandy live in Sioux Falls and have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner Gary Hansen will now take his oath.
Commissioner Hansen, are you ready at this time to take the oath of office?
Mr. Chief Justice Gilbertson.
Just can't wait to get to work, can you?
No, I can't. They save the best for last, you know.
Okay, you may proceed.
I, Gary Hansen, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the State of South Dakota, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of Commissioner of Public Utilities Commission of the State of South Dakota. So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
honored today to have a number of dignitaries with us. As I introduce them, I would ask them to rise or otherwise present themselves for recognition. We have U.S. Senator and former Governor Mike Rounds and Jean, right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Frank Farrar. We have Supreme Court Justices Steve Zinter, Glenn Severson, Lori Wilbur, and Janine Kern. We have Public Utilities Commissioners Chris Nelson and Christy Fegan. At this time, we would like to also recognize all members, current or former, of the South Dakota State Legislature. We have the pleasure again of listening to Dominant 7. They will now perform Juan Tizol's classic Perdido. Again, the arrangement is by Dr. Manhart. weather in Aberdeen may be cold, but the music is hot. Right? Father and I were talking beforehand, and he said, now what's the name of the group? And I said, Dominant 7, and he counts, and he says, but there are 9 of them. And I said, well, maybe that's why they're so dominant, right? Yeah. No, of course, we do want to thank Dr. Manhart, Nick Reese, Paige Tooker, Alec Nelson, Colton Schaefer, Calvin Kramer, Delana LaBelle, Chase Manhart, Alan Burmeyer, Logan Manhart. Ladies and gentlemen, Dominant 7. So what do people want from their leaders? If we surveyed those of us here today, I bet we'd get a lot of similar answers, right? We want fiscal responsibility, we want courage, we want integrity. See, the deal is that politicians know that's what we want. So whether they are those things or they aren't, they tell us they are. Sometimes that makes it tricky. It means that the real mark of a leader is not just what they say, it's what they do. With that in mind, how do we measure this man who is sitting before us? In a few moments, he will deliver a new inaugural address, but how do the words of his last address, delivered on this spot 4 years ago, compare to the actions that he has taken since that day? Well, 4 years ago, he promised us South Dakota would not spend money it didn't have. A few days later, he responded to the recession-induced deficit by cutting his salary, finding efficiencies, cutting every state agency's budget, and eliminating programs. With those and many other hard decisions, our budget was balanced. 4 years ago, he talked about the importance of effectively facing natural disasters and emergencies. Since then, we have seen him care for every corner of this state. He has walked levees at 6 o'clock in the morning. He has spent 20-hour days coordinating tornado response. He's comforted ranchers who have lost their herd. 4 years ago, he promised us that he would make the tough choices, the right choices for our state. When it became evident that our prisons were filling up, he dove into the data. And he admitted to all of us that our justice system was not perfect. In the face of those who might have accused him of being soft on crime, he worked with others to institute one of the greatest criminal justice reforms in our nation. Reforms that will make our communities safer and that will hold offenders more accountable. South Dakotans like leaders who do as they say. On Election Day, after 4 years of seeing him at work, voters re-elected our governor by the largest margin in state history. You see, they like men and women of action, of integrity, of honor, of courage. They like our governor. So now we turn our attention to a second inaugural address, one that we know matters, because its words will be backed by his actions. Ladies and gentlemen, now it is time to welcome to this podium a governor who has never stopped listening, never stopped learning, and never stopped working for us. Ladies and gentlemen, your governor, the Honorable Dennis Daugaard.
Thank you. Governor, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, sit down. Wow, thank you so much. You can tell a lot of relatives are in the crowd, can't you? Thank you so much. Mr. Chief Justice, honorable members of the Supreme Court, Lieutenant Governor Michaels, legislators, constitutional officers, family, friends, all South Dakotans. It is truly an honor to stand before you today to take the oath of office for a second time as Governor of South Dakota. In fact, I'd say it's a greater honor today to take this oath for the second time than it was 4 years ago. I sought this office 4 years ago because I believed I had something to offer. I used that campaign to tell South Dakotans about myself and about the values of hard work, self-reliance, and frugality that I believe we all share. And you gave me this job 4 years ago based on potential. I think back now to that inauguration in 2011. It wasn't an easy time to be serving in public office. We were recovering from the worst recession since the Great Depression, and we were faced with very difficult decisions. We joined together, all of us, and applied a very simple principle: we can't spend money we don't have. But a simple principle doesn't always lead to an easy decision. I'll never forget, and I will always be thankful for the courage and the leadership that our legislature showed and the sacrifices that so many bore to bring our state back into balance. We are a better state today because of it. When I sought this office for a second time last year, I was no longer asking the voters to judge me based on potential. I asked them to consider my record and the record of the legislators who joined with me. I'm very thankful for the strong message of support that South Dakota showed for the decisions we have made. We have proven that South Dakota values still work. We have shown the rest of the nation that there is a better way, and others are taking notice. Our bond rating has been upgraded, not downgraded, with a positive outlook for the future. We recovered all the jobs lost during the recession more than 2 years before the rest of the nation. And we consistently have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. Our agricultural economy is as strong as ever. Again and again, South Dakota has achieved recognition as one of the best or the strongest economies in the nation, the best state to do business, the best tax climate in the nation, the best state for entrepreneurs, the best state for young people, the best state for retirees, the best run state in America. We were even recognized by one source for smiling more than any other state. And I can see that's true. Some of those rankings are more valid than others, but I am always proud to see our state ranked among the best. These rankings are not the source of strength. They are just evidence that the rest of the nation is seeing the results of our values put into practice. It was President Grover Cleveland who said, "A public office is a public trust." I'll say that again. A public office is a public trust. This is a principle I strive to follow. It's not my government. It's not the legislature's government. It's not the Supreme Court's government. As our state seals, under God the people rule. All of us who are called to public service must remember this. With every decision we make, we must first consider what is morally right, and then we must consider what the people would do given the same information that we've been given. I don't consider myself a person who seeks attention. In some ways, politics doesn't come very naturally to me. But I don't think South Dakotans want attention seekers in government. South Dakotans don't want our state government to be a source of drama or entertainment. We get enough excitement, unpredictability, and cliffhangers from our federal government. You'll get that. that changed, I know. But as our friends in Washington have shown us, good television doesn't make for good government. Partisan warfare does not lead to sound and stable management. The word that best sums up the public trust held by all officials is stewardship. Stewardship. The careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. Good stewardship has been my goal over these past 4 years, and it will be my goal over the next 4 as well. It was good stewardship, careful and responsible management that brought our budget into structural balance years ago. It has been good stewardship each year thereafter to project our revenues and expenses with caution, so that if we erred, we would err on the side of a surplus, not on a deficit side. Our retirement system trustees have exercised good stewardship to manage our state pension plan, so it is fully funded and in sound condition for present and future retirees. In fact, we are one of only a very few states in the nation that can say that, and I'm very proud of that. But good stewardship does not always mean not spending. Frugality is not the same as cheapness. A cheap person refuses to spend money even when it would be wise to do so. A frugal person is careful with money, but understands that sometimes spending in the short run can pay bigger dividends in the long run. This very rotunda is an example of that. 2 years ago, we learned that the glass floor in the rotunda was at risk of collapse. This Capitol building was built using designs of the Montana State Capitol, and their floor was beginning to weaken. We spent money in the short term to reinforce this floor with steel plates and steel beams so that ceremonies like this can be held in this rotunda for decades and centuries to come. In a similar way, about a year ago, we learned that the stained glass above us was also at risk of collapse. The 100-year-old lead was giving way, and half-measure repairs that had been used in the past were failing. Again, we spent money in the short term to preserve the beauty of this Capitol and to make it more durable, even more durable than originally. It will last for a century or more. Just as it can be wise to spend to strengthen the structure of a building, it can be wise to strengthen the structure of our government. That's why it was good stewardship to enact the reforms of our criminal justice system. These were accomplished in the short term, but with long-term effects to improve public safety, hold offenders accountable, and save money. In fact, only 2 short years later, we have already saved money because of these reforms. Likewise, when we received an unexpected windfall last year, we used the money to retire bonds early and to pay cash for a new veterans home rather than borrowing. We were able to increase spending on education and Medicaid more quickly because of the savings we enjoyed from those decisions. We've protected the beauty of the Black Hills, created new opportunities for recreation in the East and the West, taken steps to preserve our state's pheasant hunting heritage. These are short-term steps with long-term consequences. This principle of stewardship, careful and responsible management, will continue to be my goal for the next 4 years. We won't spend money we don't have. We will keep our budget in structural balance. We will be frugal, not cheap, and seize opportunities to spend in the short term where it can lead to savings or efficiencies or better government in the long term. And we will spend what we need to spend to maintain our state's assets so that when we leave the state, it will be in a better condition than as we found it. Just over 100 years ago, ex-President Theodore Roosevelt spoke at the Sorbonne in the Grand Amphitheater at the University of Paris. He had come to Paris with his son Kermit just days before by way of the Orient Express to give his well-known Citizenship in a Republic speech. The speech emphasized his belief that the success of a republic depends not upon the brilliance of its citizens, but upon their discipline, work, and character, the quality of its people. He told the audience, self-restraint, self-mastery, common sense, the power of accepting individual responsibility and yet acting in conjunction with others, courage and resolution. These are the qualities that mark a masterful people. I believe that these same qualities still mark the citizens of our state. Linda and I are grateful and excited to continue in the roles of Governor and First Lady for another 4 years. I must tell you, though, we found another set of titles that we enjoy even more, Grandpa and Grandma. Just last Monday, we welcomed our 4th grandchild, Greta, into the world. 4 years ago, I closed my address by talking about my grandparents and my parents. Although my parents didn't live long enough to see this day, my Uncle Howard was planning to be here today. 96 years ago, he was born in the farmhouse where I later grew up. Unfortunately, he fell and broke his hip and couldn't be here, but I'm hoping he's watching. Uncle Howard, I hope you're watching. But even as we're acknowledging his generation today, even more I'm thinking about our 4 grandchildren. Henry, Stella, Elizabeth, and Greta. They are not here with us for the ceremony. You would have heard them if they were. If you ask 2-year-old Henry, who's your favorite governor? He'll answer, Grandpa. I kind of like that. Now, when North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple was here visiting South Dakota for our 125th anniversary celebration, I was feeling pretty cocky when Henry was asked in Jack's presence, who's your favorite governor? Jack, he said. Henry's parents had foreseen the opportunity to play a little joke on me. It is funny to think about it. But also, these 4 grandchildren will hopefully live to see South Dakota celebrate our bicentennial 74 years from now. I like to imagine that someday before that, in 20 or 30 or 50 years, my grandchildren may look at an old video and listen to what their grandfather had to say here today. As they watch this speech, they will know whether we succeeded or failed. They will know if South Dakota is stronger or weaker than we are today. They'll know at that time if we stayed true to our values of hard work, perseverance, and frugality. They will know if we exercised self-restraint, self-mastery, and common sense, if we accepted individual responsibility, if we showed courage and resolution. These are values I hope to teach my grandchildren, but they're not values I taught to South Dakota. They're values South Dakota taught to me. And we must teach them to our grandchildren and children. And that is why we must all recommit ourselves today to the stewardship of this state. As I said 4 years ago, it is not preordained that South Dakota will always be strong or prosperous or free. It is the obligation of every generation to secure these blessings for the generations to come. If we ever fail, it will be because we forgot those values that have served us for so long. May we in South Dakota always be a masterful people. And like our forebears before us, let us confront the challenges ahead with common sense, courage, and resolution. To do just that is my pledge to you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you again.
Sir, that was beautiful, and an unexpected highlight was the discomfort in the first few rows as you talked about the structural deficiencies of the floor. Sorry, those of you on television couldn't see it. It was delightful. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the retrieval of the colors. We would ask you to be seated while the elected state officials depart and prepare for the receiving line.
And that does wrap up the oath of office ceremony as our constitutional officers, Governor, are sworn in for the 90th legislative session. Of course, a four-year term ahead of us here in South Dakota.
You know, it's this kind of wraps up what officially is supposed to happen today. It's outlined in the state constitution and law that when you win an election, specific time, you take your oath of office, and that's today for the legislators, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the constitutional officers. Now, but the rest of the day, there's much more to come. This is the party and the celebration time, whether it's a renewal of an administration or turning over to a new administration. So later on this evening, we'll be back with the Capitol Ball and the Grand March, and then another ball at the Ramkota here in Pierre, another Grand March then. What will happen the next couple of minutes is the governor's going to set aside some time to meet with the news media, and then there will be a public reception. In other words, if you're a citizen of South Dakota, you want to have a chance to greet elected officials, they'll have a receiving line here in a few minutes.
He is very accessible to the people here in South Dakota, and this is a celebration. A lot of the lawmakers, constitutional officers, as you visit with them, it has been a long road as they've done their campaign work, and they finally made it to here. This will be the time where they get to all mingle, enjoy one another, meet families, and so on. So it will be a celebration into the evening.
Well, you had a chance yesterday afternoon to sit down with the governor and talk about the first term and the term ahead, and some very candid conversation about his first several months in office, the first year or so. And we're going to have a look at that interview right now with Stephanie Rissler and Governor Daugaard.
I'm now joined by Governor Daugaard. Thanks for taking the time to be with me. We're going to talk about the last 4 years. We'll take a look at the 4 years ahead. First thing, how would you describe your first 4 years as governor for South Dakota?
Well, I'd say the first few months of the first year were definitely anxious and stressful. Even though Governor Rounds was very open about letting me see his calendar and joining him in any and every opportunity, it's still a lot different when you're actually doing the job. And of course, the first thing when I took office was the budget. The budget needed to be balanced, and that was no fun to cut expenses. But I campaigned on a promise not to raise taxes, and I wanted to keep my promise, and so we had to cut. And pretty well across the board, not every program, but every agency had to find some programs within their purview that could be cut, and education had to be cut, Medicaid. I cut my own salary, cut my cabinet salary, the governor's staff salaries, 10 to 15%, and we got the budget balanced. So that was tough. And then not long after that, that would have been March of the first year, and then in May, here came the Missouri River flood, which we had never experienced anything like that. Most floods come and go. That flood just came, and then it built and built and built and built, and then it stayed up for months. And so it was really worrisome whether we'd get the dikes built or the levees built on time and whether they'd hold. And there were a few times when we had some near collapses of the levee, and once it collapsed, then there'd be no preventing the water. So that was stressful. And then also, I believe it was that same first year, we had the murder at the penitentiary with R.J. Johnson. So that first year, I would say, was really a hard year in many ways. It was also hard because I didn't really know how to schedule myself very well. And so I think I tended to overschedule myself, and many South Dakotans are always asking for participation. Come see my business, come to our town, come to our annual meeting of our group, or I need to talk to you about this issue or that issue. And so I did a lot of that, and you have to do a lot of that, but there's some of those things where come speak to our group or come see our town. You need to pace and spread out, because if you fill your schedule, then inevitably there will be things like the flood or the murder that you can't schedule and don't know are going to occur. And then suddenly you've got all these other commitments. So that first year I really didn't schedule myself very well. And to be honest, I did not like being governor, I would say. But over time I've learned to spread myself out a little bit, leave gaps in the schedule, to absorb the inevitable, unpredictable things, so that at the end of the week I'm not just bedraggled from running. And now Linda and I think are both better at that, and we're enjoying it a lot more.
There were some very unique challenges for you the first couple of years.
Yes.
Were there duties that came up beyond what you talked about, going and speaking at meetings, but other things that maybe you surprised you that came along with the job that you just weren't aware of?
Well, I don't think so much duties that of which I was unaware. It was more so the diversity and complexity and multiplicity of those duties. You'd go from studying some kind of a criminal justice issue to dealing with a disaster to dealing with some revenue stream to dealing with a personnel matter. It just one thing after another, and many, many very complex issues. And I had a healthy appreciation of my own ignorance, but I was reminded most sensibly about how deep that was, that ignorance, and how many issues there are, and how difficult it is to be fully apprised of all the things that you'd like to know about. So you have to learn to be dependent and delegate and rely upon a capable support staff, capable cabinet secretaries, and I have that. I have great cabinet secretaries, got a great governor's staff. Many of the staff that joined me at the outset of the first term are still with me. I think when Dusty Johnson left at the end of 4 years, he really was one of the longest serving chiefs of staff around the country, and so it's not atypical for you to gain support for a year or two, maybe 3, and then have that person say, well, I've done my public service, and now I need to go back to my regular jobs or go on to other new adventures. But I was surprised, I guess, by the depth and complexity of the issues and how rapid fire they were.
Yeah. You talked about some of the challenges, especially the first year and a half or so. What about the rewards that you would discover in this position?
Well, and there certainly were and are rewards. When we balanced the budget, it took a lot of hard slogging, but I think people in general look back and say that was a good thing. We got it done, we swallowed our pill, and now things are going along well. Our budget's balanced. We have had 3 years of surplus. We've got our pension plan in fully funded status. We've paid down some debt. So our financial position is very solid. And so I feel very good about that. And that's something I've been nicking away at every year, something or other to do with finances, and I'll continue to do that. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that to go downhill in state governments, and I like to try and push us uphill a little bit so that if ever there is a temptation to spend a little bit more than we should or borrow a little bit more than we should, we're in a good position already and not adding to a mountain of debt or adding to a deficit or something. So I feel very good about that. That's been rewarding. And we've got the levies up, and they did hold. And also, even during those times that were stressful, like during the floods, you come across just the best in people. You see South Dakotans at their finest. They're helping themselves, not complaining. They're helping their neighbors after they help themselves. They come to the aid of strangers when they have no need themselves to help others who are in need. And I saw that not only in the flood, but during Winter Storm Atlas, and again just last summer with the Wessington Springs tornado and the flooding on the Sioux River. Just to see it again and again in South Dakota, and it makes me so proud to be associated with all the people of South Dakota.
You've kind of alluded to this next question, but the things that you're most proud of so far that you've been a part of?
Well, the budget, balancing the budget. I think criminal justice reform. I think our adult system. I'm going to mention that in the State of the State on Tuesday. We had our first Oversight Committee report, and it's early, but so far so good. The prison population has stabilized and even flattened out pretty well. We're a little bit ahead of our projections, a little better than projections. It's still early, but so far so good. So those kinds of things feel good. This would have been the year I would have had to propose a multi-million-dollar capital expenditure to build a new women's prison. I don't have to make that proposal this year. because our women's prison population has declined. So some of those adult reforms have had the intended effect, and that's good. And our public safety is improved, not reduced. So that's good. Economic development, we've restored an important economic development tool that we had been at a disadvantage. Other states don't tax equipment and machinery for new businesses. We do when a new business comes in. We have now in statute the authority to forgive that if it makes a difference, whether they'll come or not come. We don't have to automatically forgive it like we would in a pipeline that's coming through anyway, because it's the shortest point between A and B, and that was one of the flaws in the old program. But that's a success. Better government. I think South Dakota government is a little more transparent now. We're more accessible. If you want to know how the rules are being made, you can go to our rules portal. Just this week, we unveiled a new boards and commissions portal. So if you want to know what's going on with the Board of Regents, or the Brand Board, or Game Fish and Parks, or the Board of Social Work examiners, you can find their minutes, their board membership, the terms of those board members, their agendas, their next meetings, all through one portal. So it's easy. I think we're also more efficient. We're going to have increasingly, and we're already seeing it already, more driver's license renewal online, so you don't have to go to the driver's license station when it's not time to get your eyes checked or your driver's test. If it's just paperwork, why do you have to haul yourself down for that paperwork? Do it online. Same thing with filing business tax returns or making payments of those tax returns. Buying our license plates, that's going to be going online and by mail. Eventually it'll be a little time for that to roll out, but better government is definitely something I'm proud of. We're more transparent, we're more efficient, we're doing things online rather than forcing our citizens to stand in line.
Okay, let's move to the future. I had the opportunity to sit down with you and First Lady Linda Daugaard 4 years ago. It was above the rotunda. You guys, at the time, you seemed excited, you seemed a little nervous. It was the day before. What are you feeling today?
Well, I'm still excited, still grateful to the voters who have given me this second term, excited about that. I'm not as anxious because I know the job better now, and I know I have great staff. I've seen them perform and how capable they are and how dedicated they are. You know, I was just talking with staff yesterday about the difference. At the federal level, if you look at the cabinet secretaries, they very frequently will stay a couple of years and then move on. And it's very hard to be an effective leader of a very large organization, and certainly the federal agencies are much larger than ours. If you're only there a couple of years, you're just learning where everything is and what your span of control is. And so I'm just very grateful that I've got a great cabinet that has some longevity. So I'm not as anxious as I was 4 years ago because it's a known quantity for me.
This next question, I'm going to kind of bundle it into two, and it will be our last. As you look to the next 4 years, kind of what you're hoping to accomplish, and as you think about wrapping up your final end as the governor, there's always some type of a legacy that's left behind. What do you hope that is?
You know, we've talked about this. In fact, some of my staff brought up the term legacy to me. And when I think of that term, I think, in a way, it's not something I want. Because in a way it is, what do you want people to think about when they hear your name, the Daugaard legacy? And in some ways it seems tied to a personal satisfaction or a personal achievement that you want to be remembered or you want to be memorialized. And I think, and Helen Keller said this, she said, I just saw this on the Page a Day calendar yesterday at our house. She said, personal happiness is not achieved through that sort of thing. I can't remember how she expressed it, but it's really fidelity to a worthy purpose. And so if I can, while I'm in government while I'm in this role be showing fidelity to honest and solid financial position of our state, good public policy that results in higher public safety, better public health, a stronger infrastructure, whether it be roads or rails. Even though a bold leader might offer something more splashy and have more memorable things, if I can nick away at a lot of these things and at the end of the day say all these things are in better condition than when I took office, that is what will give me satisfaction and happiness.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to come and sit down with us, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, Stephanie Rissler, a chance to speak with Governor Daugaard yesterday afternoon in the reception room outside the governor's office. Very casual conversation. It kind of surprised you, didn't it?
It did surprise me. He was candid, and I think a lot of our viewers will relate to some of the things he said, especially as he talked about those unique challenges the first year and a half to 2 years he was our governor.
You know, with the extensive coverage that we provide across our various platforms, we hear a very detailed spreadsheet speech. First part of December is required by the budget address. Next Tuesday, you'll be on live with the State of the State address, oftentimes laying out more of a legislative agenda, but really a different feel today to talk about personality. And I think that not only his speech today, but his discussion with you yesterday kind of exuded a little bit of that casualness and what the serving in the office means to him.
Yeah,
good discussion.
It was good. He was excited, but he knew what to expect, and you could tell that as he took his oath today.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up our coverage here from the Capitol. For as far as the ceremony goes for swearing in legislators, constitutional officers, the governor and lieutenant governor, the official business is out of the way. There'll be some public greetings this afternoon, and then we'll be back tonight on the air at 7 o'clock Central Time. It's time for the party. Two official balls, Capitol Ball and then another ball at the Ramkota in Pierre a little later on. But there is a very, got a little pageantry and red carpet walk and a grand march. We'll be back to help show you and share with South Dakota a little later on this afternoon.
That's right. As you said, that will begin live right here on SDPB television. You can also view it online at sdpb.org. It all kicks off 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain. And just a programming note, Larry, you mentioned the State of the State address. That will kick off the 90th legislative session. You can also watch that. Our crews will be here. That's next Tuesday, January 13th. 1 p.m. Central, noon Mountain. On behalf of all of us, for Larry Rohr, everyone with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, I'm Stephanie Rissler. We'll see you back here tonight.
State House program funding provided by the South Dakota Bar Foundation, the educational and charitable arm of South Dakota lawyers and judges.
Get complete coverage of the Governor's State of the State message from SDPB